Grayboxing is an essential part of the game development process and allows you to quickly iterate on your game design and layout. In this video, we'll be discussing how to use Grayboxing in Unreal Engine 5 and some tips on planning your indie game. So let's just dive into it. Let's just go straight into it. Now, as you know, my plan for this specific game is to have it within a certain number of weeks and to be able to produce enough content during the entire period of time that is well advertised, well made, and everything is well, and release it and also release it onto game festivals. But hey, that's a whole process and in a very short amount of time. If I can do it, goddamn, I'm kind of proud of myself at that point. Let's get back to understanding the basics of grayboxing. Grayboxing is a process of creating a simplified version of your game's environment to test gameplay mechanics and level design. It involves creating placeholder assets such as cubes and cylinders to represent objects and structure your game. Grayboxing allows you to focus on the gameplay mechanics and layout of your game without worrying about the visual polish of your assets. Now you can see in the background, it's just me just grayboxing a specific level that's going to be in this game. This is what in my mind would be the first level. I wanted to keep it as simple as possible to get the players as quickly adjusted to the mechanics of the game as possible, because the game, with how I'm developing it, I feel like it's going to be a little bit more challenging. All my games are kind of challenging. They have a challenging edge that you just have to get through in order to play them well. But next point is plan your level layout before you start grayboxing. This is such a huge point. I have planned 5 or 6 levels to this point. Obviously, what you're seeing is the first level, the level layout and everything. Do you know how I plan this? Through physically writing and drawing little on scraps of paper about how I think it's going to go. So what I would say is consider what gameplay mechanics you want to test and how your game's layout can support them. Create a rough sketch of your level, like I just said. Include plotted points of interest, again, like what I just said, such as objectives and checkpoints. Okay, I'll stop overall repeating that. Create a graybox level in Unreal Engine 5. Create it. It's that simple. You can understand the basics, you can plan the layout, but until you create it like this, you actually won't visually be able to see what you're thinking or talking about. You can create a graybox level by simply creating simple shapes such as cubes and cylinders, so it won't take you much time. It will take you maybe an hour a day in order to plan each level, and boom, you have a more visual aspect of what exactly your game is going to be like, how it's going to work. But be sure to keep your grayboxing simple. Don't make it too complex. Your mechanics and everything and your level design, they all come after. Your game will readjust to your idea through time. But at the start, simple grayboxing is the way to go about it. Now, as I say that, obviously I'm in the grayboxing stage, and this is the second video of the whole series. So I've already talked about planning your indie game, which I'm going back to the first video which mentioned that plan your indie game while grayboxing, before grayboxing, or any other point. Do not do it after you graybox. That's a point where it's a bit too late. At that point, you're just throwing ideas into the air. When you get to the point of grayboxing, you would have already planned out your game to a certain point. You would already planned out the ending to your game and the beginning to your game. You're trying to figure out what gameplay mechanics can go into each level and what visual aspects will be allowed in each level. That's the point of grayboxing. And it's important to plan your game. Consider the scope of your game, target audience, and your budget. I've mentioned about the budget idea before. Now let me just go a little bit deeper on the budget idea now that I've got a little bit more experience. The simplest way to actually budget your game is to figure out what job you're working as. Let's say you're working a minimum wage job for about, I don't know, £10 an hour, I think it's about. And you're also doing this at the side. Now your job, your basic job is about 37.5 hours. Now you just have like maybe a couple hours in between. You just have to calculate how many hours you're willing to spend a day on making the game and times that by the week, and then times that week by the month. Now, if you do that correctly, you're able to calculate how much a month you are supposed to be earning from making your game, and that's the basic idea of your budget for the entire process of the game. So you just times that month by the process of the game. So if it's gonna last a year, it's the month times the year, and that's how much money you're supposed to have while developing the game. Now, you don't need to have all this money all at once. You just need to have like certain points, certain amount on each like mountain top of the game, shall I say. Like, for example, the playtesting, the advertisements, and everything else involved. But you know what, that's a whole video on its own. If you want me to do a whole budgeting video for you, that's gonna be a whole video on its own, because I can. It's not difficult to do, but people tend to ignore it, and then all these expenses come out of nowhere. So, like I said, create a project plan and timeline, include milestones and deadlines, plan your game, and stay organized and focused throughout your whole development process. And boom, you would have an amazing game. And obviously, don't forget to Graybox. So there you have it. A little bit of involvement from me, some tips about Grayboxing in Unreal Engine 5. With the right planning and strategy, you can create a successful indie game. Anyways, thank you very much for watching. Good luck when making your games. Keep up with updates, as I'm updating pretty much every week, like videos every week at this point. And peace.